All right, when it comes to economic development from petrodollars, is it fair to compare Nigeria with Saudi Arabia? Here's a headline from a newspaper, Business Day, saying Saudi Arabia's $620 billion future generation fund, sovereign wealth fund, mocks Nigeria's bleak plan. It's kind of harsh. Let's take a look at a few economic metrics for both nations here. And as we take a look at these metrics, let's see. 2020 Q1 GDP, 9.6% growth in Saudi Arabia, 3.1% in Nigeria. Oil sector for Saudi Arabia annualized in the first quarter expanded by 26%. Nigeria contracted by the same figure. And then, of course, oil production, according to stats from OPEC's monthly report, on 10.3 million barrels per day for Saudi Arabia, 1.3 million barrels per day for Nigeria. So is it fair? Well, we're going to ask that question we'll pose that question to Tuoyo Iwetan, who is an associate with financial derivatives companies. Tuoyo, good morning.
Good morning, Rosas.
Is that fair? Is it fair to compare Nigeria's oil outputs to Saudi Arabia? What do you think?
Well, to be honest, that's not a fair comparison.
It is not a fair comparison.
we literally just saw the numbers now, right? Yeah. About 10 million to 1 million production per day. And then that's not just what you'll be looking at. We're even looking at the oil per capita ratio. Saudi Arabia has about 35 million citizens, and Nigeria has 206. And then when you look at the numbers, what we're making, the revenue, we're using it to service about 200 million citizens, as against the revenue Saudi Arabia is using to service 35 million citizens. It is not even on the same level playing ground.
We know the issues affecting Nigeria's oil outputs, the oil thefts, and aging infrastructure and so on and so forth. What's the solution? Is the issue lack of leadership? What's the issue there?
Well, leadership is always the forefront of every success or failure, right? But then there are also other instances you have to look at. Now, looking at security, like you mentioned, vandalization. At some point, it used to be an issue of there's vandalization going on somewhere and people are just trying to loot as much oil as they can before security agency come. So those are our expected loss, what they can take before security agency comes. But right now you have situations where they don't just vandalize to take, they vandalize to rechannel to illegal refineries. So you can imagine the extent of loss that will be going on with those period. Also, you also have what you call the UTC, the unit technical costs.
Yeah.
Given that we have to dig deeper to get oil, as against Saudi Arabia, who have surface oil, you wouldn't expect us to have the same costs, because you have costs in Nigeria spanning to two figures, going to about $11 to $12 per barrel, and Saudi Arabia still in one figure, about $2 to $3 per barrel. So at the end of the day, it's not just the leadership. The people also have a hand in playing it.
I want to ask you about the non-oil growth. If we look at a city like Riyadh, the capital of Saudi Arabia, or Dubai, right?
Okay.
We have a plan here, RT200, right, where we're looking at developing the non-oil sector to the tune of hopefully $200 billion in exports over the next 3 to 5 years. But the question I'm posing to you is the impact of petrodollars on non-oil growth. Is there a link, or can you completely just diversify away from oil and say you want to grow your non-oil sector without? How do you see that dynamic between the two?
Well, they are both links, because at the moment we get most of our revenue from the oil, and this revenue is what is meant to use to develop infrastructures in other industries. At the end of the day, what we're looking out for is economic diversification, right? Yeah. So, you have to work on your roads, on your building your railway in terms of security and safe means of transportation. So you cannot totally say you want to ignore one to focus on the other. Rather, you would use the revenue from the oil to develop the other industries. And this is going to lead to economic diversification, as you can see in other parts of the oil-producing countries.
Interesting. What do you make of the Petroleum Industry Act as far as where we are so far?
There's been a lot of debate around it over time, and it's here now, and we're just going to see how it's being played and the recommendations that will come from it. It has about 319 segments, and I feel like that's robust enough. So we'll just literally see what goes on moving forward from now.
The durability of indigenous oil and gas firms and longevity here in Nigeria. What's your assessment of, in general, of them?
Well, I mean, so far so good. I mean, oil and gas is a capital-intensive industry, and you can attest to that because most of the equipment and running costs are like in USD, foreign currencies, and the like. So it's never going to be like an easy bargain for them. However, given the recent boom in oil prices, I see them benefiting from this, and moving forward is going to be really beneficial on the long term for them.
All right, so let's just zero in on one of them. Seplat Energy PLC. There's this. I'm sure you're aware of the whole back and forth over their plans to acquire equity ownership of Mobil asset, and then the government stepping in. What do you make of that development? I guess there.
Well, I mean, like NNPC also have a right to that transaction, and at the moment it's still being on debate, and I really don't know why, because it's literally just a company transaction trying to buy another company, and then Seplat has shown capacity in terms of being able to take over this asset and use them efficiently, right? Because at the end of the day, you can't have, I think these assets of the Mobil produces about $1.3 billion US. That cannot just be like left laying low, being underutilized. And Seplat can actually utilize this asset. So I really do not understand why NNPC is holding back on this. Yes, they have first rights, but then it's still a deal that should go through.
Well, we'll see how that turns out. They're still going through a number of regulatory hurdles as far as who gets to contact who for approval. We only have a minute to go. The energy transition debate in Africa, and COP26 taking place in Egypt. Well, what's your quick take on that?
Well, I mean, the world is tilting towards renewable energy, and I can see Africa also like buying into this. As you can see, the COP27 is going to take place in Egypt, right? Egypt. So you can see that Africa is not trying to be left behind, because at the end of the day, climate change will affect productivity, especially in the agricultural sector, and that's like one of our key frontiers here in Africa. So yeah, I'm hopeful to see what the result of that conference will come about.
All right. Tuoyo Iwetan, associate with Financial Derivatives Company Limited. Thanks for joining us to talk
Thank you for having me.
energy, oil and gas, and so on and the likes.